thank you and welcome back. I'm excited to get into step 2 now of this group marketing system that we have, this employee benefit marketing system, which is prospecting. Now, I'm going to tell you, when I first started and just in sales, I went out there and was marketing these benefits to employers just like you're doing. And when I first started, this was not my favorite thing. I didn't enjoy going out there and calling on companies, cold calling and beating the pavement and that kind of stuff. It was not my favorite part of the business. In fact, I kind of viewed it as a necessary evil. But I'll tell you why I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't very good at it. Once I actually got pretty good at it, it was fun. It was enjoyable. And I think about working with people like Brian Fihili, my first, the first person that I really hired that was strong and willing to go out and match me effort for effort. One of the first people that was willing to do that, and the first person I really clicked with became a really good friend as well. I think about going out and prospecting in those early days. It was fun. I mean, we had some great times. There were many times that we would look at each other after a good day of prospecting. We would have called on many companies and had some great companies that showed interest. We set some great DM meetings. And there were many times that we looked at each other and said, I can't believe we're actually getting paid for this. I mean, we're having so much fun out here doing it. So that would be my challenge to you. If you say, I don't like cold calling, I don't like, is to go out and do it and get good at it. I think the better you become at it, the more enjoyable it really is. And today I view it as a great part of our business. I enjoy taking folks out and showing them that side of the business, the prospecting side. It's really where it all starts. You've got to get your qualified leads, but then you've got to go out and contact those companies. Now, prospecting is a skill, okay? It's not something that comes naturally. It's not a talent that you might have. It's a skill. What that means is you have to develop it as a skill. There are really 2 skills that you have to develop when you're prospecting. The first is actually getting to the decision maker. So if you and I walk into a company and there's a receptionist sitting there, you normally can't just walk by the receptionist and walk back to the office of the decision maker and sit down. You've got to talk to the receptionist and get the decision maker usually to come out and meet with you. There are times where the receptionist will say, yeah, he or she is right back there, go ahead and stick your head in, but you have to get to that person before you can do the second skill, which is setting up an appointment, right? I've always said you could be really good at setting up appointments, but if you never see any decision makers, it won't do you much good. You have to work on both of those. So what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is actually take time and talk about both of these skills. What are some things that you and I can do to become good, to get better at getting in front of the decision maker, actually meeting them face-to-face if you're in person, or getting to them on the phone if you're on the phone, and then also setting up some appointments. So here are some tips on actually getting to the decision maker. Actually, again, when you walk into a company, see that receptionist, how do you get that person out to meet them in person? Or when you're on the phone, how do you actually get a live voice? It's easy to get to a decision maker's voicemail, but how do you actually get them on the phone? Number 1, bring a gift. I mean, that to me is the most simple thing. I love using that approach. I'll walk in with all confidence. I'll tell that receptionist I'm looking for this person. And notice the other tip there, ask for that decision maker by their first name. I don't like walking in and saying, yes, is John Smith in? That makes you look like a solicitor. Okay, I like walking in and saying, hi, is John in? And then the natural question that the receptionist, we sometimes call that person the gatekeeper, the natural question that they're going to ask you is what? Do you have an appointment, or why are you here to see him? And I love just saying, I've just got a small gift that I want to drop off. A lot of the times we'll use this gift here, which is a mug, a ceramic mug with some Hershey's Nuggets chocolate in them. That works as a great gift. It's not very expensive. It's a few dollars, but you can walk that in. It looks good. I mean, people love chocolate. I love it because when that decision maker comes out, this is my first question. I'm going to say, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Mike Riches with Harvard Risk Management. We're the company that's doing a lot of the identity theft workshops with companies in the area. I just wanted to bring you a gift. I don't know if you like chocolate or not. See, I love saying that. I don't know if you like chocolate or not, because what does everybody say? Of course I do, right? Or who doesn't like chocolate? And they take the gift. If you wanted something from me and you just came and asked for it, I might give it to you. I might not. But if you gave me a gift, I have more of a tendency to say yes. Yeah, I'm a lot more likely to say, yeah, here you go. I'll give you what you want. So I love bringing a gift. It softens them up, but it also gives you a reason to actually see that person. When that receptionist says, what are you here for? I've just got a gift I wanted to drop off to him. You know, if you walked in and said, I just want to meet with him for 10 minutes, there's no way you're going to get to that decision maker. But a lot of the times bringing a gift, that receptionist will call that person up, and especially if it's a good-looking gift that the receptionist sees, oh, yeah, I think he or she will want that gift. So I love doing that. Again, ask for that decision maker by their first name. I always like to start at the top, okay? So a lot of the times if you're using a tool like a Manta or a Reference USA, it's going to give you contact information for the decision maker, and sometimes it'll give you more than one name. It'll give you maybe the president and the HR person. Where do you start? I always start with the president. I always walk in, if the president is John Smith and the HR person is Susan Jones, I'll walk in and I'll say, hi, is John in? And I love it, especially with a little larger company, because that receptionist will give you a look like, there's no way you're going to get in front of John, right? He or she will give you that look. And I love that. And of course, they always kind of, they'll pause. They'll say, do you have an appointment, or who are you? And then I love saying, no, I just had a gift. What about Susan Jones? Is she in? And then it's almost like this sense of relief comes over the receptionist, and he or she will say, oh, yeah, I'll grab Susan for you. And so I like to start at the top and then maybe work your way down. If you kind of meet that face of there's no way you're going to get to the top, then you ask for the second person, and they'll almost call that second person up just out of relief. And so I love doing that. Here's a key. Be nice to that person, the receptionist, the gatekeeper, whatever you want to call him or her. Be nice to him, but don't give too much information. I've heard people walk in and say, hi, this is to the receptionist. Hi, I'm with Harvard Risk Management. We do identity theft workshops, employee benefits, legal plans, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you're given maybe the right information, but to the wrong person. The receptionist is not, here's what he or she needs to know, who you're there to see, right? Can they get that person out in front of you? So what information do you give them? Hi, is John in, right? And then if they say, who are you with? I'm with Harvard Risk Management. What are you here for? Do you have an appointment? No, I just wanted to drop off a gift. Is he available for 2 seconds? I could just drop off this gift. That's what I'm looking for. That's the way to get that decision maker out of their office to come up to the front to actually meet that person face to face. A lot of that is confidence. It's having the right posture. We call that posture. Posture is not sitting up straight, right, or walking the right way. It's the way you carry yourself. Or do you have confidence when you walk in the door? I remember when my brother came out, after I had been doing this for about 6 months, I'd been working the business for about 6 months, he flew into Louisiana, where I was living at the time, from Tennessee, and he field trained me. And he took me out, and I watched him walk into these companies, and he just had so much confidence. Yeah, he had that infectious smile. I mean, people tend to just like him because he looks nice, but it was confidence too. It was posture. He walked in. So sometimes we think of posture as being mean. It's not being mean. It's just being confident. Walking in with that presence to be able to say, yes, I need to see that person. And if you act like you're supposed to be there, guaranteed people will get you in front of that decision maker. I've always kind of taught there are 3 categories of people that walk into the business. Be careful that you're in the right category. So I call it category A, B, and C. Category A is a person that has an appointment, right? So think about this. If you're the receptionist at a company and somebody's walking in the door, that's a category A, B, or C every time. Category A is someone that has an appointment. And how many of you have walked in a place and you had an appointment? What do? What does the receptionist do? No problem. Have a seat. I'll call them up, right? Okay, you're not going to have an appointment walking in, especially if it's the first time you've prospected the company. So you're not going to be category A. Category C is a solicitor, okay? A solicitor, salesperson, whatever you want to call them, that's the type of person that receptionist or gatekeeper is trained to keep out. I mean, and let me tell you, you got to be nice to that person. We use the word gatekeeper. It's probably not a very nice word, but you got to be kind to them. You got to understand that person has probably been chewed out multiple times for letting someone back that wasn't supposed to get back, right? Or calling the decision maker up for someone that decision maker did not want to meet. And so you can't be too hard on them. They're just trying to do their job. And so they're looking for category C people. And that's if you start getting into too much information, or if you don't look confident, or if you don't look like you're supposed to be there, they're going to easily identify you as a category C person. you're not going to be getting in front of a whole lot of decision makers at that point. Where you want to be is category B, in the middle. Category B is someone that doesn't have an appointment, but is supposed to be there. That's where you want to be, is in category B. When you walk in, yeah, I don't have an appointment, but I'm supposed to be here. Why are you supposed to be here? To drop off a gift. Again, it goes back to having that gift. If you can successfully put yourself in category B, you will get in front of a lot of decision makers. When we're talking about the system and working the numbers, we talk a lot about 24, 12, 8, and 2. And here's what those numbers mean. If you go out and prospect in person, 24 groups, you ought to be able to get in front of 12 decision makers. So about 50%, right? I mean, you're looking, if you're walking in the door. Now, if it's over the phone, it's going to be a lot more. You're going to have to start with a lot more than 24. Okay, but if you're in person, you're walking in, you ought to be able to see, right, about half of the decision makers that you actually call on. And some of you say, well, that's nowhere close to where I'm at. That's okay. That's why you want to get better. If you put some of this stuff into practice, that's where you're trying to get, is about 50%. When that decision maker comes out, 24, 12, 8, that's the next number. So in other words, about 2/3 of those decision makers that you meet with, you ought to be able to set a meeting, or that you meet face-to-face, give the gift. About 2/3 of those, you ought to get a meeting with to come back. So 24 companies, qualified leads that you go call on in person, 12 decision makers that you actually see face-to-face, 8 actual meetings that you get set up, and out of those 8 meetings, you ought to be able to close 2 of those groups. In other words, set up enrollments with 2 of those companies. So that's where we teach those numbers, 24, 12, 8, and 2. I'll just give you a tip if you're calling on the phone. Let me tell you, the key there is persistence, right? If you're calling on the phone and you're trying to set up meetings that way, a study was done, and it was not about these particular services, but it was about services that are sold to companies. And the study showed that when a company bought a service, it looked at how many times whoever sold them that service had to call on that company to get that company's business. Now listen to this. On the first call, 2% of companies were sold, right? So only 2% were closed after the first call. After the second call, 3%. After the third call, 5%. And after the fourth call, 10%. Now listen to this. 80% that's left, so 2, 3, 5, and 10, 80% of companies were closed after the 5th or more call, right? So sometimes 5, sometimes 7, sometimes 10. So what's the key when you're calling on the phone? Persistence. You got to keep on going. You can't say I've called that company twice and I couldn't get to the decision maker. If that's your attitude, you're only going to close about 5% of the business that you could close if you were just a little more persistent. Now, a lot of the time when you're calling repeatedly, you're going to get their voicemail. That's a very common thing for a receptionist to say, yeah, let me put you through, and then you get a voicemail. I love to leave a very simple voicemail. I've heard some people leave voicemails, and it's very detailed, you know, what you're trying to accomplish. Here's my voicemail. When I'm leaving for a decision maker, I'll say, hi, John, this is Mike Riches. Hey, I've got a quick question. Could you give me a call at 214, and I leave my number, and I say, and that's it. Thanks, John, and I hang up. Why? It intrigues them. I don't say I'm with Harvard Risk Management. I don't tell them anything. Not on a voicemail. Here's why. They probably won't still call me back. See, I talked to a guy the other day. He said, yeah, I've left several voicemails. Nobody's called me back. I said, no. You've got to go out there and get them. They're very rarely going to call you back. But it's not that. It's so that when I call again the next time, the second, third, fourth, fifth time, they're intrigued enough that they actually pick up the phone, right? A lot of the times what happens is that receptionist calls and says, I've got a Mike Riches on the phone, and the decision maker says, I don't know who that is. Put them to my voicemail, right? But if I've left that voicemail 2 or 3 times, they're intrigued. And so what do? They pick up the phone. Now, I told that person that I want to ask them a question. What's the question? The question is, are you free next Tuesday at 9 a.m.? Right? That's the question I'm going to ask them. I want to set a meeting with that person. And that really leads into the second skill, which is once you get in front of that decision maker, how do you get more appointments? How do you get more of them to say, yes, let's sit down for 10 to 15 minutes? And so here are some tips on that. Number 1, know what you're going to say. So you've got to have that script down, okay? You cannot, when you're in front of a decision maker, I don't care if you're on the phone or face-to-face, you cannot be thinking about what you're going to say next. Here's why. If you pause, if you hesitate, they will take that opportunity to cut you off and start asking you questions. You don't want that. When I get that person on the phone or when I'm with them in person, I know exactly what I'm going to say. I've got it scripted down. How do you get good at that? Practice, practice, practice. Again, it goes back to that activity. But you got to know exactly what you're going to say. Don't pause. Just move right through it until you can get to the key question, which we're going to talk about in a second. So know your script. My script is I walk in, I say, again, hi, I'm Mike Riches. I'm with Harvard Risk Management. We're the company that's doing a lot of the identity theft workshops for companies in this area. Or I might pick on their industry there. If they're a construction company, I'll say, well, I'm with Harvard Risk Management. We're the company that's doing a lot of the identity theft workshops for construction companies here. I just wanted to stop off and bring you a small gift. And again, I say, I don't know if you like chocolate or not. They always smile. Oh, of course I do. And I say, what I'd like to do is sit down with you for a few minutes and bring you some information on the workshops that we provide. I'm actually going to be in your area next Tuesday morning. I was going to see if 9 o'clock would work with you to be able to sit down, right? I know what I'm going to say. I don't pause, and I get to that key question. I'm assumptive. A lot of the times we'll say, I've been assigned to call in your company, and that's what my brother taught me when I first started. He said, go in there, tell them you've been assigned to come and meet with them. And I said, well, how is that? I mean, I didn't want to fib. I didn't want to be dishonest. He said, no, it's not dishonest. He said, I hereby assign you to call on every company in your state, in the United States. And I said, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So, but it's more just again, that posture. You got to be assumptive that you're going to sit down. And then here's the key. Ask the right question. And I'll give you a few examples of what's not the right question. Here's one that's not the right question. Would you be interested in that? Would you be interested in identity theft? Would you be interested in a legal plan? Right? Would you be interested in sitting down with me? Here's another one that's not the right question. Do you have time for that? Right? If you ask a decision maker if they have time, I tell you what the answer is going to be. No, they don't have time. Right? Here's the right question. Tuesday at 9 a.m., does that work for you? Right? Here's why. If the answer's no, all you have to do then is find another time. It gives you a perfect lead to your next follow-up question. Right? So ask the right question. And it obviously doesn't always have to be Tuesday at 9 a.m., but you're asking the time, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Whatever it is, you want them thinking my calendar. Right? You want them thinking, am I free at that time? You don't want them thinking, do I really want to meet, or would we be interested in that? Here's why. It's not that they're not interested. It's that they start finding reasons not to do it, right? They start thinking, or they'll start asking you too many questions. They'll start, well, tell me more about this, da-da-da-da. I'm telling you, if you've got your script down, you know exactly what you're going to say. You walk in with that assumptive nature, that confidence, and you ask the right question. Tuesday at 9 a.m., are you free? Could we sit down then? I'm telling you, you'll get a lot more of those decision-maker meetings. Will it be 100% no? You're looking for 2/3. You're looking for 8 out of 12 that you get in front of to be able to set a meeting with. And I believe that you'll get those numbers if you acquire that skill of getting in front of the right person. Another tip that I'll give you is I would normally at that point focus on the identity theft plan only. In fact, I don't even talk about the benefit. You heard my script. I talk about the workshop. I love that. It's a softer approach. I mean, it's a great approach to actually get that 10 to 15 minutes. The legal plan is very difficult for a person to comprehend if they're not already familiar, which most people are not. So I like to stay with something that they're going to understand. Most people are familiar with identity theft. They know it's a big problem. That's kind of a hot ticket item right now. It has been for the last several years. That's why I use that at the front. I use that as my approach. I don't get into too much information. You'll have the decision maker meeting to be able to do that. So I love to keep it like that. Let's go over some general prospecting tips, just some things that as you're out there prospecting that you can keep in mind. Make sure that you have the right supplies, okay? The worst feeling is getting out there, you're excited, you got your leads, and then you forget something. You forgot the chocolates, you forgot a mug, you forgot this, you forgot a business card. So here's what you want to have when you're prospecting: mugs, candy to go inside of them. And some people say, well, can I use another gift? Sure. I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? But I've seen a lot of people deviate from that, and it's usually not as effective as a mug with chocolate. I know that that's simple. I know some people think, well, I can think of a better gift than that. That's fine. But I looked at my brother when I got started. He had made several $1 million with a mug and chocolate. I said, that's probably good for me as well. So I would follow the system. I would stick to that. Some people deviate with what they put in the mug. They say, well, I can get cheaper candy than those Hershey's Nuggets. Yeah, I know you can. But I'll guarantee you this. The cheaper the candy, the less likely you're going to get that meeting, right? At some point, it's better just to hand them an empty mug than to put a bunch of Smarties in it or something like that, or like an M&Ms, not in a bag, just straight M&Ms. It's like, no. That makes it look like you've been snacking on those. So be careful with that. I would stick with the nuggets. I've never deviated from that. And I think that's one thing that's helped me be a little successful in this business is I didn't deviate. I just followed the system exactly like it was laid out. I did exactly what my brother told me to do. Maybe that was because I was only 22, 23 years old. But whatever the reason, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that I didn't say, well, I can figure out something better than that. I said, okay, if he tells me Hershey's Nuggets, I'm going to use Hershey's Nuggets. If he tells me a ceramic mug, I'm going to use a ceramic mug. And so be careful with taking shortcuts. They say that the longest distance between 2 points is a shortcut, right? So don't do that. Don't fall into that trap. Make sure you have your calendar with you. When you're out there prospecting, your calendar is key. Why? Because you're going to want to write down that appointment. You're going to want to take notes. And so make sure you've got that with you. Again, business cards. By the way, I'll take my business card and I'll put it in the mug. I'll take my business card and I'll put it in the mug just like this, and so it's kind of sticking out there. That's just a great, memorable way for them to think about me, and they've got my information there. A lot of the times that'll stay in the mug even though the mug is empty, and they'll have my information with them. And don't ever leave the house to go prospecting without the supplies for a decision-maker meeting. Here's why. The worst feeling is when someone says, yo, I've got 10 minutes right now. Could we sit down? And you say, well, I don't have anything with me. You want to have it with you in your little portfolio, your Patfolio. Have a proposal, have a kit with you. Be ready to do those decision-maker meetings on the spot. You got to think like that because sometimes that'll happen, and you want to be prepared for that too. So here's another one. Stay organized. Stay organized. When you come out of a company, take a second and write down some notes about that company, especially if they've given you any information. Sometimes just in conversation, things will come up. They'll say, no, my daughter's got a ball game that afternoon. I've got to leave work early. Oh, really? How old is your daughter? What kind of ball does she play? Write that stuff down. Don't depend on the old rusty brain to remember that stuff next time you go in. Write it down. Here's what's impressive is when you meet with that person a week later and you say, oh, by the way, how did your daughter's game go last night? And I mean, people are impressed when a salesperson remembers things about them personally. And so, but you got to be organized. You got to have your notepad ready to do that. Invest in a GPS. Okay, you'll waste a lot of time running around from place to place if you don't have a good map and a good GPS. I would even tell you the night before you go out prospecting, I would tell you maybe look at the companies, get 15 or 20 that you're going to go prospect, and look at them on a map so that you know where you're going. You're not, because I've seen people waste hours and hours and hours just trying to find locations, going from one side of town to the other. Be organized. 30 minutes of preparation can save you 3 to 4 hours in the field actually going out and prospecting. Dress for success. Be careful what you wear into companies. Look good, right? Look good, smell good, the whole 9 yards. And I'm telling you, you think, well, I could get by with shortcutting that. That's another area you don't want a shortcut. If you're a gentleman, I would always recommend a button-down shirt, okay? You don't have to have a tie, I found in prospecting. You can probably, unless you're like downtown Dallas or in a business district where that's the way that most people there dress. But if you're just out prospecting, open collar works fine, and a nice pair of dress slacks usually works fine. If you want to go with a polo, I would use a Harvard polo. I don't like when we have reps that go in with just a regular polo shirt. Make sure it says Harvard on there. And I'm not talking about writing it with a Sharpie either. I'm talking about getting a nice shirt from our online provider and looking the part. Ladies, I don't have to tell you how to dress. I found most of you know how to do that, right? So just dress for success. Make sure that that's appropriate. And then here's a great tip. Call ahead. Okay, and I usually like to do this the afternoon before I prospect. Call ahead to verify the information that you have is correct, okay? And here's just a sample script for doing that. I would call a company, and again, I might have 10 or 15 or 15 or 20 that I'm going to call the afternoon before I actually prospect. I'll call ahead and say, hi, this is Mike Riches. How are you today? This is the receptionist answering the phone, right? I'm not going to talk to the decision maker at that point. I'm just verifying information before I go in person the next day. I'm going to call and say, hi, this is Mike Riches. How are you doing today? The person's going to say, fine. Great. Hey, I'm wondering if you can help me. That is such an important question. In fact, if you just learn that question, you'll make a lot of money in our business. Will you help me? I'm wondering if you can help me. And of course, the person's going to say what? Yes, yeah, of course. What can I do for you? Or sometimes they'll say, well, that depends. What do you want? And I'll say, I need to drop off a gift for John Smith. Is your address still 123 Main Street? And notice I'm asking for the address first. That's important because they're willing to give out that information. Okay? Is your address still 123 Main Street? And they'll say yes, or they might say no, we've moved, and they'll give you the right address. Or sometimes they'll say yes, but it's Suite 300, and I didn't have that in my notes, so that just saved me some time. That's great. And then I'll say, okay, and great, thank you so much. And by the way, do you know if he or she is going to be in tomorrow? It's John Smith. Do you know if he's going to be in tomorrow? And sometimes they'll know, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. And then you hang up the phone and you go, here's what that does. It does a few things. Number one, it lets you know if the person's still there. That's important because sometimes the information that you have from a Manta or a Reference USA isn't updated. And there's, oh man, I hate that feeling of walking into a company. Hi, is John there? I'm all confident. And they say, John hasn't worked here in 6 months, or John hasn't worked here in 2 years. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll be back then, you know. And if that does happen, if she says that on the phone or he says that on the phone, if the receptionist says, that person hasn't worked here in a long time, what's the next question? Who took their place, right? You find out who took their place. Now, if Susan Jones took John's place, you walk in the next day, hi, is Susan in, right? Now you've got that confidence back. So to let you know that you're talking to the right person or looking for the right person. Number two, to let you know if they've moved. And that's another frustrating feeling when you drive 10 minutes out to a company just to find out that they're not there. That quick 30-second phone call can fix that. And then the third thing, it'll let you know if that person's out. I mean, if John Smith is on vacation this week, the receptionist will usually tell you. That's what that last line is for. Do you know if he's going to be in tomorrow? Oh, actually, he's out all week. You know, I want to know that. That just saves me 5, 10, 15 minutes of walking into that company. So just, again, that 30-second investment. And what I've learned is I can verify 20 companies in about 30 minutes. It does not take a long time to go through that little script, but it saves you hours on the back end. So just a little tip for you. I also want you to know that we have some great tools available at harvardbenefits.com. You have letters. You have sample letters that you can use to confirm an appointment, sample letters that you can use after an appointment, a follow-up letter. You have an enrollment confirmation. Once you set the enrollment, that's available where you can put your information on and send that to your decision maker. You've got instructions on setting up a professional email, including your signature so that you look good electronically. I don't like it when a rep sends an email and it's a bad-looking signature. You want it to look sharp, look professional. That's part of maintaining that correct posture. And then you'll also find online some great scripts. You'll find some more advanced trainings on things like prospecting and doing the decision-maker meetings. So don't forget you've got a wealth of resources there at harvardbenefits.com that you can use. I hope that this information on prospecting has been helpful for you. Again, this has become one of my favorite parts of our business, going out there and meeting new people. In the morning when you head out, it's not always fun, right? You walk out and you say, oh boy, you know, if you're prospecting, if today's Tuesday and this is your day for prospecting, those are the days where it's easy to find excuses to stay at home. And I remember that was me when I first started. I would look for excuses. I would go in early in the morning, get on my email, and just like pray that there were emails that I'd have to address, you know, so that I wouldn't have to go out and prospect. But be careful taking those excuses. It's a great part of our business. And I've found this. If you're willing to get out the door and go do it, you'll have success. And it's a great feeling when you can close the day where you've gone out and prospected and you've set up some decision-maker meetings. That's a great feeling. Even though you haven't made any money yet, you know it's coming because of the activity that you do. So I wish you the very best in prospecting.